Angie, are you there?
I am, yes. Nice to see you guys.
What's with the link? Because Jim may be trying to log in too.
I feel like we have one of those really bad real estate shots here, with the the bathroom is 30 by 50.
Okay, I guess we got them.
All right.
Won't worry about it.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, Jim.
Oh, start video. Okay, I can do that.
Ah, there you go.
So Angie, are you home or somewhere warm?
I just arrived home from somewhere
Oh.
warm. Yeah.
From somewhere warm.
Bad. I was in the
Bad
Florida.
timing.
Yeah, bad timing on my part. That's what everyone said on the way. You're going where?
Well, you missed last week, so that's not too bad.
I think it's fine. I'm glad. I'm always glad to be home, Jim.
Right.
Yeah. Next time I'll stay longer.
Right. Good plan.
All right, good evening, everyone. It's 5:30. We'll call the meeting to order. This is the January 28th, 2026 Capital Improvement Plan Committee. Lisa and I were just chatting earlier. I think the last meeting was the end of October, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think we got, yeah,
Right, yeah.
that's, yeah.
So it's been a moment, as they say. So let's do item number 2, adjustment of agenda. Any additions or deletions?
I have an addition,
Okay,
which is something that I would like to present to the committee. And that is that I have put in a petition to run for a select board spot this election cycle. And if I am successful in that bid, then I would probably resign from the committee here. So.
All right.
Make that announcement, see if anybody had any questions or want to talk about it, but
thank you. Frank and I had a conversation earlier about this, and correct me if I'm wrong, Frank, but he did say that if we ever needed any type of like little tweak or something to the model on a go-forward basis, if somebody here couldn't figure it out, he'd be open to assisting us. Is that correct?
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
And good for you, Frank.
I didn't like the way you said that.
No, anybody that wants to be in politics at this time has my full support and just amazement. Thank you.
Public service, not politics.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, we are in North Hero.
All right, thank you, Frank. Any other additions or deletions? All right, moving on to item number 3, public comment. My knowledge, no one from the public is present. Okay, item number 4, review of capital plan building process. There's 3 bullets there. Confirm number of years of capital plan outside of the annual capital budget. Agree on standardized fiscal year reference abbreviations and review project submission instructions. So let's start with the first bullet. Confirm number of years in capital plan outside of the annual capital budget. Is this a question of like 5 or 6? Is that what?
I think so, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I put the first 2 on the agenda. It came out during the presentation that sometimes we were doing budget plus 4, sometimes we were doing budget plus 5. So it's just what we can agree to standardize on what it should be, and then use that going forward. And I think Vermont wants budget plus 5. Is that correct?
Yes, I think so. They usually recommend 5 years.
Which to me is a long way to go, because you're
But
really
is it-
looking at more than 6
it's-
years then.
Yeah, is it 5 years total, including the existing year, or I mean
No,
it's 5,
including-
6. That's a long time.
it is a long time. Mind you, you can just fudge whatever numbers you want, right? Because
Yeah, because nothing's really ever. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
unless you want to
Let's
show
take that
monies
out.
that are going to be set aside every year for 5 years for some allocation.
Right, let's just use an example just for clarity, perhaps. We're gonna be voting a budget on this March town meeting day. That starts July 1st of 2026. So if that's the quote unquote budget year, is the idea there that we would have that as a year 1? Or is that the budget year and then we go 5 years out on top of that for a total of 6 years?
So the actual budget year that starts July 1 is fiscal year 27.
Right,
Yeah.
and it starts July 1st, 2026.
Yes. Yes.
So that's the question. Is that what, Jim, you were contemplating?
Well, it needed to be discussed because during the presentation, we kind of had both things going, where
Okay.
some stuff was going out in effect fiscal year 27 plus 28, 29, 30, 31, and 32. That would be the equivalent. Budget plus 5.
Yep.
Right.
Or-
So the one we're working on now is going to be the capital budget for fiscal year 28.
Correct.
Correct.
And then 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. Is that what we're thinking?
Well, it seems like a long way out. But as I said, you can just fudge those numbers. It doesn't really matter. And is that just, are we pushing it too far and will that lose credibility with some people? Or if that's what the state wants or prefers, is that what we should be doing? So it's kind of everybody's view on which way to go.
My sense is to, using Lisa's example of we're gonna be now requesting information for fiscal year 28. That would go out 4 years beyond that. And I think it's something we could always change going forward. What I'm thinking about is, I'm not sure, we have to go back and look at the information people submitted today, but do we have any, and has any department or committee, submitted anything where they know that, and I'm making this up, 5 years from now, they're gonna need to spend $50,000 on X, Y, or Z? Has anybody actually gone out that far yet?
Yes.
Okay,
The community hall has a 50-year plan. I think the next step, once we get the equipment and everything's on a cycle, and then, the buildings, everything's on a cycle, we will know those kind of expenses 5 years out, 10 years out, 20 years out, whether a roof needs to be replaced or heating systems, or so the facility piece of it and the equipment piece of it, when that gets on a cycle, those kind of
Okay,
expenses will be
so-
out there.
that would then lead me to, favor going out an additional year, meaning 28 plus the 5 years out.
I mean, I think we're still in the build out of this process. And we've had, the first goal is kind of like procedures, and the second goal is kind of to get all the committees involved and used to it. And now what Lisa's talking about is working on building equipment and facility schedules. And most of the examples I've seen of that are 10 to 50 years, because how does an organization know what to plan for, especially the larger expenses, if they don't know?
We amortize it too. Yes, right, right.
So a 5-year plan is I think what we started with to get people thinking about the process. But it really depends on ultimately, as a town, what we want. Do we want to be working toward, we're always saving money so that eventually we can build a new building without a bond and save $3 million? Would the taxpayers go for that? But that's a really way off goal. But this is what an example of what I mean about being in a building out of the process phase.
How did you think about it when you were with the state? In terms of-
Hey, Angie, hold that thought for a second.
Yeah, no, go ahead. I was gonna go ahead, Mike, please.
I'm trying to remember with the capital plan for the state. I think it was actually 20 years, if my memory serves me correctly. I mean, they focused on the first or second year just because they don't tend to like, what's the expression they use? They don't like to tie a future legislature with decisions, but they do it every day. I don't quite understand the argument. It's like, but I think the state capital plan might go out 20 years, because most of those are like physical buildings, which account for the vast majority of the value of the state assets. Angie.
Yes, I'm thinking, this is my hospital experience, right? And you're absolutely right. There are really two kinds of capital budgets. There's the building capital, long-term building process, which could be 20 years because you're thinking about adding a new wing or adding a new building. And then there's the ongoing capital process. We are replacing and renovating and potentially adding, equipment and pieces to what you already have, but you're not talking about a multi-million-dollar event. So in my experience, it has been 5 years plus the existing year. So as we are going into budget, if we're going into 27 in July, then we would go out 5 more years to fiscal year 32. And and then we would, if the committee so chooses, or the select board so chooses, that you would have a much longer term, strategic plan for the town in terms of what buildings need to be replaced. That's a broader discussion than I think we would leave to any additional committee, frankly. But whether it's the library committee or the rec committee or any place else. So those are my 2 cents.
I mean, that fire station and public works garage has been in the works for over 10 years. That
But
was
yeah, but
started
that's
Oh,
Yeah.
the last year or two, right? In
It,
terms
yeah,
of-
yeah.
but
getting
the conversation has been going on for that long. But I maybe the capital planning piece of it. But we're talking about putting something on paper that says, if we want to in 15 years, we are going to need a larger town hall. And if that's the case, that's a really big discussion that goes beyond what committee manages that? Is that the select board? Do they decide if we need a bigger town hall? So I'm just trying to separate the pieces, short-term capital planning, which is the 5-year plan versus, long-term strategic planning for buildings and equipment and major projects. So
Yeah,
The
I think
water-
we're just saying, are we 1+4 or 1+5? We're not.
exactly, that's where we
it's
are. We're
like
not
this-
anything else.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think there may be some value to 1+5. All of the trucks for Public Works, all the fire engines
Yep.
are all going to be replaced at some time. And the moment they buy a new truck, somebody could say, how long is that truck expected to last? And then bang, put in another truck 5, 6, 10 years out. So from that standpoint, there will be things showing up 5 years out or 6.5 years out
There will.
that
Quick
are
question, Ben.
identifiable, potentially identifiable, like trucks and fire engines.
Does the water board have like future projects?
We're trying to digest the 2 big ones we're working on right now.
But I don't know what their planning process is in terms of how far out they
Well, I suspect that, yeah, it's a good point, Frank, because I think they
Because
probably are going, we're going to have to replace valves once every X years. We're going to have to replace certain sections of pipe. So let's start planning it.
Well,
But that's a little bit of a smaller scale
Yeah.
than, these multi-million-dollar projects that are.
well, even this building, when the select board was scoping whether or not to take ownership of it, the 50-year plan was developed as part of that to kind of capture true identifiable costs. Anytime you own a building, even if you're not planning for its replacement, you should know, okay, they got an estimate, it costs $100,000 to paint this building, and because it's wood, it's every 10 years. This floor lasts 50 years and it costs $200,000, the roof and, all of those things. With those kind of price tags, if our goal ultimately is to keep the tax rate flat, you're planning for it. And 5 years to save for $100,000 paint job, affects the tax rate more than 20 years. Right. So, and again, I just throw out 20 years. It's not what we're talking about right now, but I think just to plant that seed.
Yep.
I think ultimately this plan may grow larger than even 5 years. And it
No,
wouldn't
definitely.
have to be around a discussion of whether or not it's a new building.
Yeah.
So 5 + 1 does not seem outrageous to me.
Other people, you okay with 5?
Yeah,
Or 1 +
absolutely.
5?
Yeah, absolutely.
Angie, you okay with 1 + 5?
Yes, and with the same comment that we will eventually, or this town will eventually move to a long-term,
Right.
capital plan. Yep.
Jim, you're all right with that?
Yep. Just wanted it one way or the other. Doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, that's right.
That's a decision. I don't know
Yay.
where you
Yeah.
vote on. Yeah,
So
okay.
the next one is to agree on how to refer to a fiscal year. Again, in the presentation, we had a couple of different ways of doing it. You can go FY 27, FY 26/27, since it starts in 26. My preference would be FY 26/27. That way there's no confusion to anyone who's looking at a report for the first time and wondering, why are we talking about 2027, which is way the heck out there? I definitely don't want FY 2027, which I think we had in one of the reports, because that's just taking up a lot of space. For that amount of space, I'd prefer FY 26/27.
Frank and Lisa, I'm curious if in the finance world there or accounting world, there are any standardization around this?
Hmm.
Well, in some cases, there's state fiscal year, and then there's federal fiscal year, which starts on October first. Sometimes I've seen state fiscal year, simply saying state fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2026. Which is actually fiscal year 27, because it ends in that. So it's all over the map.
And all the banks and investment houses used to be on fiscal years, April, June, whatever, then they all moved to calendar year because it was just too much, too ridiculous to deal with. And you
Right, there's the
don't
calendar
really
year
have
also.
to do it.
Right, so you know,
You
all
do stuff
over
on it
taxes.
and then, you just start next year.
Well, there
Yeah,
isn't
by doing 26/27, it makes it clear it's not a calendar year.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I'm fine with that.
I'm fine with that.
So it's FY digit /digit.
In this case, it's gonna be, the one we're gonna do, the town meeting that we're gonna be voting on is gonna be, fiscal year,
27.
it's actually fiscal year 27's budget. Which would be 27, 28.
No,
It-
we'd be voting
No,
on
it's 26,
fiscal year
26.
26/27.
Yeah.
Right.
But the one we're working
Well,
on.
the one, that's what I meant, the one we're working on
Here,
is gonna
It's
be
27/28.
correct.
Is there any benefit or any room to call this fiscal year 27 and in parentheses, put the actual, dates? July 1, 2026. I know it's a lot, but people are confused and we're even confused.
Right.
We're looking at it.
Angie, this was specifically a table we had where there were 5 columns up at the top.
Yes.
FY da,
I
da, da,
remember.
da, da, da. So you
Right.
can't put each time. It's like trying to have a shorthand version at the top of a table. So FY 26/27, 27/28, 28/29. So
I see.
yes, I think that the best when you're discussing a document for the first time is to clarify fiscal year 26/27 beginning July 1st or whatever, so that people know that starting point.
Yes.
But
Okay.
in our common parlance and a shorthand version for use in tables that are now going out.
It's
So
not
what,
possible. Yeah.
one of the things we will now have tables that are 7 columns wide or 7 years because we had a table with the current budget year, the coming budget year that's going to get voted on, and then now a 5-year plan. So again, just trying to come up with something that's a good shorthand that's easily understandable by people that avoids confusion, I guess, is the key.
Yeah, Jim, most schools use the 26, 27 school year, for example, is how they describe their calendar.
Yeah. Okay. With the slash.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's what I'd like to go with.
Excellent.
all right.
No, I have a
We're all good.
Yes.
So in instances where we might have to describe a range. Would we start, because we have a 5-year plan in addition to an annual budget now, would we do both FY, the 26/27 dash, and then the same thing for the final year? Or,
I think if you wanted, you could do the 2 digits for the final year or just dash 32.
so if we're doing a range, we'd always want to use the ending year. I guess that's what I'm trying to ask. In instances where we have to just refer to 1 year, our preference would for it to always be the ending of that fiscal year.
I think so.
Yeah, okay. We'll deal with it as it comes up too, but I'm thinking ideally, I'd like to go through and update what's in our procedures right now.
So,
so just so I'm clear, when I'm setting up the sheets, are we including the current year? That's already been voted on, that's already been out there. Are we including that current year? Are we just looking forward 6? Or are we going to include that year? So there'll be 7, like you said, Jim.
There was a table in the presentation that we did that had, remember, Lisa, because I was confused?
Yeah, we've been.
And you said, no,
including-
that's our actual current year. So that was
Right.
part of either part of a table or part of a conversation.
won't voters want to see the current year? I mean, that helps them make sense of,
This is where we are right now.
right? And
This
it
is
helps
what's
them
coming up
understand,
that you're
yeah,
voting
like
on,
the
and this is 5 years out.
extent
Yeah.
to which it changes, you know, that,
Yeah, I agree.
that's a
I
question.
think that having the current
They
year
have
is
to.
useful information.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for that. Third bullet is review project submission instruction.
So we don't have those. That was an omission on my part.
Okay,
I printed them. All right, guys, I can send it to you real quick. Wonder if I can I bring them up on the screen? Maybe that will be easier. Oh,
You should be able to, because it's logged in for me. If you go to this PC, would it show? No, I don't have it synced.
yeah, it's not saved.
I'll do it. That way you can start the conversation.
Okay.
well, when does this need to go out, Lisa?
Well, last year we did at the end of March. So I think we're shooting for the end of March,
So could we just
trying to get on there.
review
so
this before
April.
have this on the next meeting agenda, just review it and then bring any comments or edits to that meeting?
Yep, I'll update it with the right years and the right format and the dates and, go from there. Is
Yeah,
that-
as opposed to walking through this right now, I think it'd be
Yeah, yep.
more time.
I think I was hoping to, shorten it. I mean, I think this was what we started with the first year, and then the second year we added things, and I think as we're getting more familiar, we can do more of a like really be more clear of what the actual takeaways are. Like, we'll start with that ask up front. We need you to update this, we need you to complete this. We need a response by this date, and then if we feel like the more guidance is needed, we can move that to the bottom and or attach it. Cause I've had some people contact me and they're like, what did you actually want?
I think the first paragraph pretty much articulates that.
Reading.
And I get that a lot too, where like, yeah, people don't open attachments or they don't.
It says update appendices A through C.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's
updated information from.
Maybe we could
previously
change the
submitted
font.
appendices.
Underline or bold.
Bold.
Maybe things like that might be helpful.
I can move the date that it's due because that's at the end.
Yep,
Move that to the beginning.
So I think that's what a more general question. If we like the way it is, I'm not spending the time on it. But I saw a lot of room for being more succinct.
yeah, if you want to take a stab at it and bring it to the committee, I'm happy, we'll happy to entertain that. Thank you, okay. So we'll put that on for the next meeting and just make a decision at that point in time so that you can be mailed out in a timely manner or sent out. Item number 5, capital project primer for department board committees, discuss possible development. There's a project primer.
Oh, this is. We discussed, I should have gone through the minutes, but we discussed,
For the how to,
no, I think this came out of our discussion on how to. Now that we're in our, what is it, our third iteration we're moving into. Of how to keep projects updated. And so I don't remember the term project primer. But we had brainstormed ways that when we sent out. Our requests for information. That we might have an additional ask based on. Letting us know how your ongoing projects are going. Where's that already in here? Equipment was there. or was
It says inventory and project review process.
Yeah. So maybe I'm wrong, but we had a really long discussion about what is our actual responsibility for following up on projects and what if projects don't happen? And what if the project changes?
like scope, financial scope,
Yeah,
or
like
brief
how do
or
we,
whatever, like,
so as,
like what role, I think, and that's coming back to me now, like, I think we're wondering what our role is in that. In terms of communicating that. Or what should be, once we know something, what should be communicated up, meaning to the select board. And is that our responsibility at all?
And I think we landed on it's not, but what we're doing is coordinating, which means we're really trying to communicate, which led us back to, well, how do we get this information from committees? How do we get them to
Yeah, this is
communicate with
about it.
us?
Like, for example, if some committee member contacted you or Lisa and said, oh, by the way, you know, the cost for this renovation that we're in the middle of has gone up by 25%. Or something like that, or the timeline is gonna be delayed because of supply chain issues.
And then whether that needs to be incorporated in the plan that we're working on
Yeah.
upcoming, or if they've got a way to just figure it out as they go.
So basically a standardized procedure or reporting process,
I think so. The project primer doesn't quite ring
you know,
in that tone to me, so
project status or public,
is it ringing a bell with anybody else? It's been 3 months, that's. And so,
Is this something that the select board asked for? Or no?
well, so what
One
we.
of the logistical issues we're trying to figure out.
I think what
Right.
happened is we went through and did a review of our overall program.
Mhm.
And one of the bullets is to keep updated on projects. And we struggled with that one from the beginning. And I think we've had this discussion a lot, like how far do we go from
Right,
and trying to keep projects updated. We don't want it up to be project managers.
Be the boss,
or-
right.
Yeah.
but on the other hand, that seems sort of fiscally responsible for somebody to be doing it.
Or even,
Right.
you know, like if somebody comes to you and they're planning on a project, you know, you're working with groups of volunteers, a lot of times they haven't thought of what operating costs would come out of building something brand new.
Right.
And having that, okay, well, you know, you're now gonna have this with electricity, and are you gonna AC it, and, you know, and then even just getting those into the operating budget. And it's not necessarily our job, but we can help
like,
coordinate.
Well,
go ahead, Angie.
you all may decide to do this later rather than now, but I do think this is a cornerstone to a solid fiscal and capital budget process. Whether who ends up doing it, I don't know the answer to that, but we need to. This is this is really part of long-term planning in so many ways. Whether we have a turn to the south that we need to know about, or if we, something goes awry in the project or it's taken off the books, we need to have a centralized location where that information is managed. And that's my 2 cents. Maybe not this year, but some year we have to do this, or it's going to be.
I'm thinking of the fire station and the public works building, for example, project. That's gonna be like kicking off here. Actually, like meaning like digging and building like in March or something.
Right.
Is there a system in place currently that anyone's aware of how that project status or information is gonna be managed or like communicated, or how frequently, or?
To the select board every month. There's a project director, there's a
Okay.
project manager, or project
Okay.
director.
I mean, that's sort of.
Owner's rep, I guess, is his actual title, that he's responsible for communicating back to the select board on a monthly basis.
Okay, so that's a sort of a one-off big project, which is appropriate, I think.
Well, like the water department, their bench just came in less than they expected, so now they're having a conversation, do we expand the project to use up the grant funds? And those are, and so, you know, do we just like hands off, okay, each board has got this, or?
Almost like this is a select board decision about how they want that information, how they feel the information should be.
Well, it should be no more than every year, right? We're talking about intra-period
You know,
updates, right? So our Schedule D is gonna be updated for the next year, right, if they have changes. Who knows how many there would be within the year.
And this is one of these inflection points where I think it'll guide how we grow, because if we move toward one pot, we need to know these things as they're happening, right? So, you know, because.
real time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
whereas if we continue with the 12 reserve funds or whatever, I'm exaggerating. And each board is really responsible for their own, and we can kind of just coordinate a plan that's more of a communication tool for the town. That's still really valuable, but it does change what our goals are. So
I-
currently we have the 12 reserves.
I agree. We need this, we need some select board feedback in this, but I will, for all the things we've talked about, we do need, I mean, the town needs something in place. And there's one other comment that I just want to make, and that is volunteer boards change. I mean, we're pretty lucky because it's been fairly stable for a long time, but they're going to change. And we need to have a structure, a process that holds that in place for the people that are coming and going through the various committees.
Yeah.
So,
The other thing I would suggest is like, I'm thinking like, over the past couple of years, I've sort of monitored the, I can't remember how frequently this was updated, but the Drawbridge project.
oh,
And the
yeah,
exit-
right.
Exit 17 AOT project, and they have a website where they update all this information. I used to get weekly emails about the Exit 17, about where traffic is gonna be restricted, or timing of closing down the interstate, or whatever all the stuff, different things were. But it was it wasn't financially related, but it was very informative just from a practical perspective. Like, you know, like when the drawbridge is stuck open, for example.
You knew.
After reopening.
We should have called you, man. I'm telling you.
But I'm like, I can imagine something, there might be like some local interest on the public works and the fire station, whether it's weekly or monthly, like on the town's website, like this is where we're at.
It's a great idea.
Or it gets made to the select board is like made public on a monthly basis.
I would think you almost owe that to the voters. I mean, they're the one that are paying for
Funding
it.
it.
Well,
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
it is there.
I
It's
mean,
attached to the-
Okay.
He does a monthly update and he comes to select board and he didn't make the last meeting and they read the whole thing aloud.
But,
They want to get it out there, so you can listen to it as well.
but, yeah,
it's-
okay, but maybe it needs to be communicated in a way that, I don't know.
Well, we
Not
have
many
a
people
page
use
on the
it.
website
Oh.
about the project and the financial piece of it, and I don't think anybody's looked at it.
Yeah, they may not know. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that's really good. I mean, to show that that the town's responsible and.
Yeah, I mean, I actually followed that too, because those are the kind of things I would love to do, but I looked at that person's role and that's her full-time job. I mean, she does multiple projects,
I
but
actually called her one day, like,
Oh,
you know,
no.
that your digital sign is actually like out of date. She was very responsive.
I appreciated
She
it.
did. And then when they didn't take the yield signs down off the on-ramp,
Yeah.
they left them up for like a month, and people were like literally coming to a dead stop there, thinking that
Yeah.
there's gonna be oncoming traffic, well, there used to be, there's like no road there.
Yeah. But I mean, I love feedback. Like I'll probably this week spend some time updating that page because it hasn't been since before we put it out to bid. But I never know, like there's only so much time and
Yeah.
there's so much information. I never know what people are actually looking at. So when people call me and they're like, this won't work, I get right on it because I know that's actually important.
So
I'm
going
not
back,
sure they know it's out there. You know, how many, I don't know that. That's a question. Might be
yeah,
worth a note in the front porch forum at some point. I don't know.
I've been wanting to put a note out in the front porch forum that people can subscribe for updates through the website. So
Oh,
you
that's
can go
great.
on and you,
great.
and
That's
there's like,
great.
it's like, I want all select board agendas and water board agendas,
Wow.
so you don't get all of them. Or I want all town news or all library news.
that's great.
That would be
Um,
really terrific.
All right, so we've sort of approached this subject and I don't know that we need to make a decision, but just maybe be mindful about how, as it relates to some of the projects that we know that are current or about to be kicked off, how we may want to get updates on this.
Well, I think we were thinking we might develop something to send out with the instructions, and I'm gonna say we're not gonna do that.
Okay, perfect. I'm fine with that. All right, item number 6, inventory and project review process. We sort of just talked about
Yeah.
project review, but inventory, they do have to do that on the annual, annual, they have to update the inventory list every year and then.
And I think this might refer more to an internal process, because like last year when I renewed the town's insurance, we have some more dedicated employees, and the Public Works Department found 3 assets that aren't on our insurance schedules. And I was kind of shocked.
Are they on the inventory schedule?
They are not, well, yeah, they are. And so there's something like internally that needs to connect, and maybe it's just me doing it. But I know that the more you talk about it and the more minds that are aware of it, the more likely it is to happen, especially as people turn over. That I would ideally, we're putting together inventories there should be some kind of a,
Cross-reference.
perhaps, you know, don't wanna make more or unnecessary work. I'm totally okay if it's just use this tool we've created to help when you renew insurance to make sure that your employees are appropriately reporting assets. That might be what it ends up being, but I wanted to.
How was this discovered that they weren't, that people?
So what I do every year is, well, I don't have, one of the things I want to do is actually create a checklist of a process, because we don't have one. This is one of these things without a town administrator. It would technically be the select board's responsibility to do insurance, and practically that doesn't happen. And so, as they've moved toward an executive assistant, I feel like I have more hours I can devote to things like this. I am putting more time toward it. In the past, I would just hit the renew button. And so now, the last couple of years, because, you know, as town clerk, it's like, I'm doing elections, like, anyway. But so I would get the inventory schedules, I would break it up by department, I'd send it to the department heads. And some would respond and some wouldn't, and I'd send out reminders. And this year, everybody but the fire department responded. And the public works guy went through the whole list, and he sent me the information for the things that weren't on there.
Hmm.
So.
Was it like 3 dump trucks or like 3 rigs?
Well, it was our backhoe wasn't on there. It was a big deal. Like, so,
But conversely, are there things on there that don't need to be on there?
yes, that happened with the fire. I reached out to the select board after that and told him what I was doing, and he got fired to respond, and, but, yeah, so.
Because if you're paying for things that you no longer.
And then I'm looking at this and I'm realizing the storm water storage tank isn't on there, so I got that on there, so there's no internal process for making sure these things we've inventoried perhaps are replicating as they should, and I want to make sure that happens, so, and I get that part is totally internal. But it seems, so I wonder if part of this is you know, we're gathering this information, again, we're all volunteer, maybe I can just make an ask to these people once.
Yeah,
And then use that information for other processes we do, which would be on me, but. So, I think that's all we need to do for now. It won't be ready by the time
Okay.
we send out this.
all right, thank you. Item number 7, hazard mitigation action item, review cap for capital expenses following a stand-up with the emergency management committee.
These were items that we discovered at the end of last year, after ours was already
Yeah.
done, I think in the fall, after they had presented it to the select board. So we got to follow up on that, but we don't really have an emergency management committee at the time, or
Nope.
That
so.
was a long list, though. There were a lot of things on that. list.
There were a lot of things on that list, yeah, so I think maybe somehow when we send out the instructions, we'll say to each department, this item was highlighted in the hazard mitigation plan. What are your,
Mhm.
you know? And say this,
Shaking his head.
no,
No,
this,
Jim, it looked like you were shaking your head.
No, I'm stretching my neck.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
then maybe when we send it out to the department, say, you know, this was an item identified it from the hazard mitigation plan, and
Give any updates
yeah,
or status.
you'll need to, you'll need to give us a appendix D for it and how you're gonna plan on doing it and paying for it. And
Is there a plan to stand up an emergency management committee?
is there a what?
A plan to stand up an emergency management committee?
There was, and I'm not sure of the status of our current emergency management director.
Okay.
So, that might be a bigger discussion.
Yeah,
She was leading this. We had not had emergency management committee. And our emergency management director led our hazard mitigation planning committee. And at the end, she said, you know, this needs at least quarterly review. And she asked the select board to create an emergency management committee, and they did. And, then I'm trying to
Okay,
move forward.
all right, thank you. I think that's a good idea, Lisa, just in terms of if we can get any update or the status information about some of those specific items, that were identified in the plan.
Yeah. But yeah, I'll take that back out and,
Ranking model discussing changes to weighting.
So I've been thinking about this and had a couple of ideas I wanted to present to the committee here. You know, one of the problems that we saw with disparities between the ranking, the point allocations, and some of these between the projects. Some of it appeared to be related to the number of reasons that they had for why they need to do it, right? Whether it was legal, whether it was risk, whether it was, maintaining service. And we gave the option for 3 answers, but sometimes you have more than one answer, but some only had one answer. And so the ones that had one are gonna have, one possible way to score points. The one with 3 gets 3 different point totals. And there it creates this greater separation between the projects. One way to address, and I think that's a little bit different than the weighting, because when you look at the weighting of the point values, there has to be enough separation between them so that you don't end up with a lot of natural ties, right? So if you have numbers that are, if you started using fractions like 4 points or 4.5 points or 4.25 points, you could start to see this thing where a lot, you have, all the projects and you have 3 numbers, just three number separations, not, 15 or whatever. And so one way to address that might be to provide for, let's say, 2 reasons, push people who might have 3 down to 2, people who have 1, push them up to 2. So everybody's starting with the same potential points to be awarded. Now, they may have different reasons, they might have different point values, but at least you don't have this situation where one project just gets 4 points and then another one gets 16 points, or, let's say 15 points because it's all 5s and it had 3 opportunities based on its reasons to get more points. I think that would go a long way to providing more parity between the projects, not having them look so different in the process, but while still remaining, keeping separation between projects that require the separation. I don't think that would be, it's not gonna be too much to handle. It would mean maybe explaining this on the letter that we just went over.
Okay.
And maybe there's a paragraph that talks about, how does the ranking model affect you in your department? I'm not sure if we ever really told them, right? We gave them the Schedule D and then we worked on, translating it into the model, but telling them, hey, you gotta have 2 reasons to do this, right? And it's in your best interest to do it, or you're not going to be able to, get the point allocation that the model would give you for your project.
How many different, reasons do we have? Oh, you can choose from,
It was like 6 or 7, maybe, 7 or 8.
and they can choose up to 3.
We could, but many would just have 1.
Right, what I'm wondering is if it makes sense to,
I mean, if it's legally required, that's usually why you're doing it. Full stop.
I do.
Or,
Yeah.
yeah, or liability was.
for safety liability.
Yeah,
if
safety,
you-
yeah.
I'm almost wondering, another thought might be simply just to have 1. And do you change the weighting associated with some of the 6 or 7 different?
We'll only allow them to select 1 out of the 10 or whatever.
Yeah,
Take your best shot.
And so we're
Is there
each,
a reason-
that might be
find a
easier.
legal reason to do it, right?
And-
Regulatory reason,
And each reason had a different point value.
Yes.
Right,
based on our ranking of what
right,
were the most important things, like legal risks, state,
Right,
state
right.
mandated.
right.
It's to help us choose which to prioritize. And so far, we haven't had to do any choosing because people are.
But yeah,
Unless we want to change the ranking of those reasons, I think it was pretty solid up front. I think we got it right out
Yeah,
of the gate. Just the question is, I think it distorted the model a little bit by
Right.
having up to 3 choices.
Mhm.
And if there were potentially 3 things to be taken from it, that project scored
higher.
much higher than others that
Yeah.
may have been valid, but just didn't add them or didn't have the basis to.
Could you do a simulation where you choose the reasons? You do what you're suggesting? Choose 2 and you allocate those reasons to each one of those projects? I
Like
mean, I
for
just
the
was saying,
ranking
just to see what, just to see what happens.
have you had a chance to play with the ranking model?
No, I haven't, but probably could do that, right?
Yeah, I think it just depends on, what the.
What the
goal
reasons
is.
were?
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
what we're-
if your goal was, you were saying to have them separate, not to have such disparity, right? Because you ended up with a big gap, right?
But they're still gonna be ranked based on their point total.
Right,
for
right,
that
right,
reason.
right, right,
So
right,
the real problem was that we had some that had 3 reasons and some that had 1.
right,
And the ones with 1 got ranked very low, and the ones with 3 blew to the top.
right,
And even outside of like grant funding and things
Right,
like
right,
that,
right,
that would have
right.
added the boost. They
right,
still ended up there because they had,
right.
you
But
know,
so I'm just
at
saying,
least 4 points each.
if you gave everybody 2 reasons, I mean, you sort of arbitrarily. I mean, you could take a look at it.
Oh, so if like one came in with legal, we could just add safety as number 2 and.
Right, yeah, I don't know.
Or ask them to.
Ask
Yeah,
them
I
to
think they
do
would
it,
have-
just ask them to do it, yeah,
They have to have 2.
yeah,
Jim,
just
go-
ask them for that.
But
and
no
then-
more than 2.
Yeah, Jim, go ahead.
Or, yeah, because I'm trying to avoid confusion on their part, let them do their thing and then just take the one that's worth the most. If it's a legal requirement and that's the top ranking, that's the one that you take. If they go, it's improved service to customer and reduce costs, well, which one of those scores more? Or the other thing would be to somehow weight like we did with the sources of funding, weight the responses to come up with an average. But where the number 1 reason would supersede all of them.
Yeah, like the first choice, just pick the one that's worth the most.
That's best. Yeah, and maybe you put an asterisk on it saying, so number 1 reason is X, but it also would do this. We can put a little footnote somewhere so that if it's a tie or if something's close, then maybe you dig into it a little deeper.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think about it as also trying to get bang for the buck, right? So we're trying to manage money, we're
Well-
trying to see where that money should be allocated.
Well-
And if there are projects that have 3 really legitimate reasons, well, that might, really
I would agree with
mean
that,
something.
yeah,
It's-
because it may have, it may hit more than one thing, and that's really important to the town, or to the group, to the town.
Right, capital allocation is one of the hardest things to do, right? And
Right.
choosing where you're gonna allocate it.
Right,
But, if you can get, so it's like leverage, right? If you can, it's not borrowing money to buy more, but if you can get more benefit out of it because you can solve 3 problems
right,
in one,
right, right.
then, that has to be reviewed.
More
on that
important than
basis.
just one thing, yeah.
And I think right now we struggle a little with seeing the benefit of ranking because we don't have one pot where we're trying to decide to move 2 projects ahead out of 10. But if this thing does grow and we end up with I don't know, this isn't a goal, I'm just throwing it out there, a 50-year plan like the Capitol Hall. And all of a sudden everybody's wanting to save so much money a year toward their 50-year goal. And people are like, and the budget fails and we have to look at it and go, well, this is an area where we don't need this money immediately and we can cut. And people may turn to this group and go, what's the least priority? And I can still see an instance where ranking is very valuable. Well, I mean, ranking's always very valuable. We've based the whole thing on it. But it's a matter of prioritization and how we actually move that into funding. We haven't had to do that yet.
To achieve natural separation between the projects, I think is important because if you have 5 that have the exact same score,
Mhm.
it's just harder
What
to
are you gonna do?
defend what you choose.
Bingo.
And so if you have very, very tight, point allocations and very, very tight, like the number of reasons, you're gonna get a lot more natural ties in the process. And I've run into that,
Yeah.
in production runs of this.
Mhm.
Jim?
But to Frank's point, that would get back to the idea of just pick the number 1 reason. Take all the reasons that they've got, document them, take the number 1 reason. And now if you're just trying to do a tiebreaker, okay, now let's look at their number 2 reason and their number 3 reason. And so use the second and third and subsequent reasons as tiebreakers. Because if this is really all aimed at how do you do a tiebreaker, well, there's only a tiebreaker if
Well,
there's
we had a
only,
lot
yeah.
of ties.
Yeah, I mean, we put something in to break the ties, right? That,
Yeah.
some logic that was able to break the tie, but, the tighter you make it, the point allocations, the more often you'll have natural ties.
Yeah, but
Well,
again,
Now we
so
can
if
look at
you-
something like that.
if you go with the number 1 reason, then you can do the table based on that. And then if you have a tie, now take the time to look at second and third reasons.
But even in the event of a tie, I don't disagree with anything that everyone said, but even in the event of multiple ties, say more than one. At the end of the day, the select board is gonna make the decision about which ones to include in this year's budget or not.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, our recommendation would be based on sort of point scoring system that we have come up with the model, but they could still say, okay, well, yeah, thank you very much, capital improvement committee, but we're actually gonna go with the one that scored lower this year.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure that the tie thing is so much of a problem.
Hmm.
What I'm starting to hear is that the method Jim is proposing would be more work for us. And the method that Frank and Pat seem to be leaning toward would push that onto the committees. We would just have to be better at communicating to them what we need.
Well, and it would make them think more about their projects too,
Yeah,
like really understand what the value,
yeah,
what they're bringing to the table.
I mean, if we have one topic and two projects choose the same category, same reason, then you start to get the funding, right? So it kind of
Yeah.
falls down to, is there grant money? Well, one has grant money, one
Right,
doesn't. Well,
right,
That one's
right.
gonna,
Right,
that one's gonna move up,
yeah,
right? And so, you know, the more you, and let's say there's no grant money and they're both kind of neck and neck. You know, some of that could have been worked out with the separation. Right, or opportunities to, because maybe the first reason is the same and the second reason is different. Right, then it's a little more systemic, but at least it gives backup to the discussion point. And it doesn't make you go through and root out, oh, you know, with your records and find all the second and third projects. But it could be done, you know, we can definitely do it on one column. We can still write it up as 3 columns, so we have the data in the spreadsheet. And then only score off of, you know, the first one.
First
I
off,
mean, that's definitely doable.
I'm curious what Lisa thinks.
No, it's all good points. I'd pick one, I think.
It doesn't have to be decided tonight, but it's something I want to at least get us thinking about because, you know, we did have some questions last year about, you know, what the end result was.
You might get swallowed up by that select board.
The win first.
You're uncontested. Just saying.
so any more discussion on this from anyone? I think maybe, you know, we just play this out for this upcoming process and maybe at that time, we can explore or simulating a couple different
right.
scenarios and just seeing how, what it changed.
We can do it both ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have one version of
Yeah.
that just looks at the one column and another version that does it, you know, keeps it the same and see where we end up.
Everyone okay with that? Okay, thank you. Item number 9, the annual report. This is just information. This is attached to the agenda is what's going to be included in this year's town annual report for the capital improvement program committee.
This is on the print, right?
Yep, you had authorized, Michael and I to work on this since we weren't gonna be meeting, so. Mhm.
Oh, Jim, is that it?
Oh. Oh,
That's my mistake.
well, I reviewed this too, and it didn't have Pat on it the first go around.
Oh, thank you for picking that.
But I'm sorry, Frank and Jim.
Review committee terms. Determine process for recommendation to the select board annual reappointment. Is there like a standardized process or something, or?
Well, not really. So the select board likes to, hear recommendations from the individual boards. And each board kind of handles the recommendation process their own way. You know,
Speaking for the Parks and Rec committee, I know we have the process that we utilize is whenever there's a vacancy, regardless of what it is throughout the year. There's an advertisement, or, you know, committee members might be aware of somebody else who might be interested in. And then there's, the interested parties submit a letter or of interest, and then there's a discussion and determination if there's any additional information needed or not, and then the committee will vote on that at a meeting and come up with a recommendation to make to the select board, and then that's communicated to the select board.
Sometimes it's a process.
Yeah,
I mean, I know you guys have struggled with it, like, should the person who puts their name in recuse
right,
themselves?
from the,
You know,
Yeah.
and you've had executive sessions when you've had more than one person put in their name.
yep,
And so I think the first step is to kind of decide if there's anybody here who's willing to put in for, I guess, renewal. Because Angie is up. Yeah,
effective, what,
so she would need to be reappointed in March to continue.
March of this year.
Yeah.
Angie, I
Yeah.
hear there's company cars for people on this committee.
Nice, Jim. I remember those days.
Yeah.
Football tickets?
You name
Hockey,
it,
maybe?
name it, Angie.
You know, we when we did this, we had to select, it was presented to us that we needed to select how many years because we had to fill in the slots for reappointment. And I chose one because I thought it was probably the least attractive one for everybody. You guys let me know. I'm happy to continue, but I'm also happy to let somebody else more skilled or a different skill that you might need make this committee, continue to have it grow. So
Yeah.
That's
think
where I am.
eventually The goal is that they're all 3-year and they just rotate through, but in order to stagger them, we had to start as a brand new committee with 1, 2, and
that's getting off the hook pretty easy. Okay.
so it would be for a 3-year term. But
Well, if you all can put up with me, it's up to you. I can get off while you talk about me if you'd like.
I, for one, would hope that you'd stay. I think the committee is still somewhat in its infancy, and so to have a little more stability and you have your unique contributions to this committee, and I think they're important. And they're good.
I'm it's the, I got some disease during healthcare. I don't know what happened to me, but thank you, Jim. I really appreciate that.
And
But-
I would echo those comments, Angie, from Jim, and also in light of the fact of Frank's imminent departure, I think it'd be helpful to have consistency and some historical, such as it is. And that's no reference to your age, it's more reference just to the length of time this committee's been in place.
A more robust endorsement I've never heard.
Yeah, right.
But just the background knowledge, quite honestly, in terms of where we've come from, and where we're at today.
Okay,
So
well,
on the next little agenda, do we want to put down action to, put forward names?
Yes.
So if you could send me something in writing, even if it's just an email, that I'll present to this group in March, that you're willing to
okay.
run again. And
Okay.
then thinking, do we want to wait until we actually have a vacant spot to decide if we as a group want to be more proactive in advertising it than just the select board puts up a generic notice that really confuses everybody because there's so many
Yeah.
positions on it. So some boards will do extra advertising to make it clear that there is actually an open role. This isn't an incumbent that's gonna run again type of thing.
And what I can do is also, I'll just, for the next meeting or in advance, I can provide it to Corinne or Lisa, is how the Parks and Rec, we have sort of a written process just for information about something we want to adopt similarly, or if we want to make any changes or modify it anyway, but just it's sort of a basis from where to go.
That's a good idea.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Timeline review, do we have any, like, we want to just talk about the next couple of months in terms of what we're sending out?
Yeah, I'm looking at the timeline and it starts in May.
So you're
So,
gonna be sending these instructions
yeah,
out
I'm gonna send the
March.
instructions out. We'll work on those next month.
Okay,
It worked pretty well the second year, this past year, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the hard work was done the first year, I think, mapping it out.
Mhm.
And then the second year, we were like, okay, this kind of works, maybe we had to tweak it a little bit, but
Mhm.
in the big picture, I think the timeline.
The
works
timeline
very
worked.
well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too.
this might be a little off topic, but I'm just thinking about it in the context of, the upcoming town meeting. There's a informational meeting the night before.
Mhm.
And is anything about the capital plan discussed at that, or do we need to have somebody present at that?
The select board will always say yes. Always trying to get representation from each committee.
Okay,
They haven't worked on their information slides yet.
But I think, we had one in there last year.
Did we?
I think
Yeah.
we had the, yeah,
yeah,
we did. We'll include the same.
we can finalize that at the end of February, but I mean, I'm welcome, or I'll get, barring any unforeseen circumstance, I can plan on being there.
Okay.
Um,
As the chair, that holds more weight too.
yeah.
Yeah.
So any other things related to the timeline, Lisa, from your perspective,
Mm-mm.
from anyone else? Okay, future agenda items, we did just talk about several things, including, well, just the most recent thing was the, committee structure in terms of the process for advertising and selecting, new members. That's one item.
I'll have the instructions ready
Have the instructions ready.
and so, yep, appendix B, and I'll have the hazard mitigation items ready.
Yep. Anything else?
I'm not sure for whatever it's worth. One of the things that the planning commission will get underway with probably in February is an update of the town plan.
Mhm.
So it might be helpful for you all to see what we're planning on doing. I mean, or at least what our schedule looks like
Sure.
and what topics we'll be covering.
Yeah,
Because, that may affect, because I know, for example, the hazard mitigation actions, that's one of the things that the state requires now being part of the town plan. So
okay.
anyway, so maybe I could
Sure.
figure out how to summarize some of
We
that
could definitely have a-
to the extent that may be of interest to you, so. Because it may affect, capital plans
Yeah.
for sure.
So like the planning commission town plan process, timeline review?
Yeah, kind of an overview of how
Just
we're
an
going to
overview?
approach it, and
Okay.
then maybe some of the topics that may be of interest to this group.
I love it. Okay.
Anything else for anyone you think of? No?
Motion.
All right.
One and only motion of this meeting.
So I'll take a motion for adjournment, please.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I
Second,
Okay, we'll take Pat first. Sorry, Jim.
no problem.
And so at 6:32, we are officially adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Be well, stay warm.
Warm, yeah. Night.
3 degrees